guys, this is Drue and
this is Brad
with the Unidentified Flying Podcast. Time for another episode. We've been talking about this one for a while.
Really getting abducted today.
Yeah, definitely. So real quick, so Brad doesn't yell at me. At UFP on Twitter, UFPpodcast@gmail.com, and Unidentified Flying Podcast on Facebook. Any comments, critiques,
hate mail,
send it all there, and we'll ignore it. No, I'm just kidding. No, we would actually like to get some. If we get some, pretty good ones, I mean, I've got no problem at some juncture doing like a mail call, but we need to be more popular first. I think we need to get.
We've gotten some good comments on just random episode or like what people would like to hear.
Okay,
and it's just like a one comment thing. Like we got some pretty good comments on the last episode we did where it was like the local stuff about earthquakes. There's been a lot of earthquakes lately.
Sure.
So everyone liked that, I think. So
okay.
Hey, we might follow up on that.
Okay, cool. Well, until then, this is going to be the big X-Files extravaganza episode. We're gonna talk about maybe some sort of maybe the spiritual successor to the X-Files, or maybe a couple of them. Some shows that kind of follow the same sort of formula as the X-Files. Then we're going to get into the X-Files, the meat and potatoes of this conversation, the X-Files itself, and then kind of leading into the new 6-episode run that's going to come out in, 2 days?
Yeah.
So to help us with that, we have our first guest on Unidentified Flying Podcast, our, what do you want to call him, our X-Files correspondent?
That's right.
Our X-Files expert. And this is Steve. Steve, hello. Say hello to everybody, all 4 people listening.
What's up, guys?
All right, there you go. So Steve I've known Steve for way too long.
About 2 weeks now?
Yeah, 2 weeks. But no, I've known Steve for a very long time, very good friend. And, I mean, all kidding aside, a very astute student of the X-Files game, Ooh. I would say. The type of person that will quote director's commentary to you. So,
setting the bar a little high.
Well, hey, you said it yourself, man. So,
I mean, you seem like you're into a lot of different, shows and films and stuff. Anyway, like you can name actors off the top of your head fairly well. Like,
yeah. Whenever nobody's paying attention, usually. Yeah.
That's exactly when you want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm put on the spot and someone's like, "Hey, who did this?" I have no idea.
I don't know.
Well, you're on the spot now, so
all right, perfect.
One of the main things that I think, and it's always interesting to me. You told me about this forever ago. I totally forgot about it. And then in the weeks and the months really leading up to us doing this podcast, when I was talking to you about it, you mentioned it again, and that's a show by the name of Kolchak, the Night Hunter.
Night Stalker.
Night Stalker. I'm sorry.
Kolchak.
Yeah. See, like I said, I didn't know anything about it until you told me about it, and that this is basically, in a lot of ways, you believe the predecessor. They laid the blueprint for the X-Files in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah.
And who I'm trying to remember, what was the guy's name that played the?
It's Darren McGavin.
Darren McGavin, which
the dad from Christmas Story.
Oh really?
Oh okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a major award, for Chile.
Must be Italian.
Yeah, I must be Italian. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. Okay, so great. So tell us a little bit about Kolchak.
Okay.
Kolchak. I keep saying Kolchak.
Well,
okay.
What's fun, you say that, and I hadn't watched the show in so long. I went back and watched it because we'd talked about it a little bit. So I watched the first episode, and people in the show even call him Kolchak and Kolchak. It kind of vacillates a little bit there.
Okay.
But he's a reporter for, I can't remember the name of the damn newspaper, whatever independent newspaper, and he gets these assignments and he goes off and he investigates all these things from a paranormal angle. The episode I think I watched, it was about Jack the Ripper, and his theory was that Jack the Ripper never really died. He's been living forever, and he's been going around and killing all these people. And
what's the time period of the show?
I think it's in the 70s, late 70s.
So when 80s. It was out, and that's when it came out.
Yeah,
so it was contemporary for its time.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you said he's not he works for a newspaper. You said.
Yeah, he's a reporter.
Okay, so he's not a law enforcement entity at all. Okay.
He's just on the beat looking for stories.
Yeah. And so one of the episodes that you watched, it's like that Jack the Ripper was basically like this supernatural entity that essentially has existed throughout the age, or through the centuries at least. Yeah. Okay, and that he's still around, like even in where does it take place? Is it L.A. or? Chicago, not sure.
I'm actually not sure
What town it takes place in?
It's been too long.
I'll look it up really quick. But go ahead and keep talking about the show, and I'll look it up.
Well, in a couple of ways, in that I think it's kind of the spiritual predecessor to the X-Files. First and foremost, Chris Carter, I guess, periodically has come out and said that it was a huge inspiration to him.
Chicago,
that makes sense. Okay, he said that the Kolchak was a huge inspiration to him, and something that I noticed in just watching the first episode the other day, and I don't know if this is true with all the episodes because I wasn't going to dedicate that much time to investigating this theory.
Well, shit, man.
But at least
you mean you didn't prepare night and day for this podcast?
But at least for the first episode, it seems to hold true in that at the very end of the episode, Kolchak is doing his internal dialogue as he's typing up his report.
So kind of just like Scully does.
Exactly
in the
like
first,
Scully does.
Season or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well,
okay.
I can neither confirm nor deny Agent Mulder's,
This might be some bullshit, but
exactly.
who knows?
Okay.
I can neither quantify nor substantiate.
So how does the show stack up? I mean, like, is it still? Did you enjoy watching it? I mean, was it kind of? Does it show its age?
It shows its age pretty well, but then again, I think the X-Files, the original series, is starting to show its age.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that.
I agree, like on the
too.
early, like the first season, because when I went back and started to watch them again, the first season was a little rough. And I'll get into kind of one of my. We're going to do some top fives here, and one of my top fives kind of has to do with that a little bit. But I think really after maybe the second season, from season 3 on, I really think it still kind of holds up pretty well.
There's certain aspects of it though where it's like, I had to go find this guy and go talk to him, and like nowadays, man, like you could just pick up your cell phone and just give him a ring.
Well, sure.
But I mean,
but is it showing its age as in like it's not a, like it comes off as hokey or something like that, or
I don't think it's coming off as hokey. I think it's the general trap of sci-fi shows in that you're supposed to be portraying something that is kind of outside the realm of possibility, and as time progresses outside of that, a lot more things become possible. So I think sci-fi shows, more than other shows, tend to show their age.
Well, I mean, I would agree with stuff like Star Trek and stuff, but I don't know that the X-Files necessarily, other than,
they'll have like an episode like where like, oh, the VCR is doing something, and you're like, yeah, we don't really use VCRs anymore,
No, fair enough. Okay, so...
But it's not like the whole show's like that,
No,
it's just like maybe just a certain episode
it's just
sometimes.
To show a little bit of threadbare on
they'll whip out their cell phone, you're like, whoa, like they got a huge brick next to their head, that type of thing. Or pager. That's normal.
So, there's a couple of things that make Kolchak kind of interesting in that regard, but, I mean, those are the things that popped out to me.
How long did it run?
Kolchak, I think it was like 2 seasons. I don't think it was very long.
Was it on like a main network? I mean, I guess it would have to be. It was on 70s.
It was network TV.
I can see why. Okay, so it sounds kind of like not Constantine, because like he's way more into that type of stuff, but outside perspective. Like you said, he's just a reporter.
Yeah, he's just a reporter who's kind
of... Does he believe in this shit?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's kind of the point.
He's the believer, and nobody else is believing him. I mean, he's sitting there challenging the chief of police on crap, and just...
They're just like, whatever.
They're like, you're crazy, get out of here.
Yeah.
So...
Okay.
It's a good show. It just, like you said, does it hold up? Yeah, it does hold up, but it shows its age. So it's like going back and watching like an episode of probably The Twilight Zone, which I haven't really ever watched that much of.
But I don't know, man. I think that, and I mean, again, you can't. It's hard to say anything absolute. But there's some episodes of The Twilight Zone that I think hold up just fine today. There's a shitload that don't, but I think there's a lot that are like really still. The Twilight Zone is unique, in my opinion, in that The Twilight Zone had a lot of. The Twilight Zone was so out there for its time that some of the episodes you watch of The Twilight Zone are so. The chances they take, like thematically, I think are really unique. Like, I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's about a guy he's being hung, like in the Old West, and the whole episode is about his life flashing before his eyes in the moment that the door drops and he dies. But it's him escaping and getting away, but you don't know until the very end that he's died. And I thought that, when you watch something like that, came out in like the 60s, and I'm like, that's such a unique way to make a story. And it was just, that was one episode. But I think that you could watch that episode today and it's just as meaningful as it was, 40 years ago. But
there's
anyway.
Probably some that are the same way that are like you were talking about with, being a little outdated.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of shows.
We're not talking about like the main elements of storytelling. I mean, the fundamentals are still going to be there. It's just going to be whether or not the watchability is there. I mean, it's kind of like old movies. I mean, there's some old movies that are always going to be watchable because they're classics and they're just good. They're just
that's why they
enjoyable.
stay classics.
Exactly. It has nothing to do with when it was filmed. It's just the quality is there. But other movies around the same time period might not be as good, and so the time period is relevant in whether or not you actually want to watch it.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so what else we're going to talk about? Maybe some shows that kind of more contemporary shows that sort of parallel. Unless you got anything more to say about Kolchak or Twilight Zone.
No.
I mean, you've also got the Outer Limits out there too, and those are kind of
similar.
They're similar, yeah. But those weren't really procedural,
Mm-hmm.
And I think a show that I've never been a big fan of it. I could never get into it, like I know you are, and I know you're a fan too, Brad. It's still going. I think is Supernatural.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's still going, man.
And it's on like what was it, like season 10 plus or something?
I think it's on the 11th season. Right
Which
now.
so hey, I mean you can't. I mean as much as I haven't been able to get into it, and someday I'll give it another shot. I mean, you can't argue with the success. I mean, hell.
I'm a huge fan of it. I'm a huge fan of it, despite the fact that it's on CW or
it's on CW.
What is that the name?
Yeah,
of that?
yeah.
What that network's gone through a couple different iterations of its name.
Was that
I
the
think
WB
CBS
as well?
owns
WB.
Was CW the WB?
It was the WB. Yeah.
Okay.
Out of Chicago.
Yeah, but so despite that, I think that's an amazing show.
We'll talk. You guys. I don't know much about it, so you guys.
I
go
only
ahead.
watched till like middle of season 5.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and a lot of people are like, season 5 is where it's at, and the end of that, it's amazing, and like they could have ended the show right there.
Yeah.
At season 5.
I'm assuming this is when I think that's when Dean. Well, hold on. Sorry. Spoiler alert. This is when Sam goes to hell.
Okay.
Is that?
I think so. I don't honestly remember, but
Yeah. That.
not that I didn't like it, but it was just something else caught my attention, and it was that easy to just never watch it again, and I never did. I think season 5 was already out by then. I was watching it on like Netflix or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I liked it. I mean, it has a lot of that's why we're bringing it up. It has a lot of X-Files feel, even though it's totally. Sometimes the subject's completely different because they're way into like demons and things like that.
Well, there's a huge reason why there's a lot of X-Files parallel. It's because Kim Manners, one of the directors and producers from the X-Files, is also one of the main guys behind Supernatural until he died. I mean, he had a huge hand in that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you can tell it's like, like you're saying, procedural. Like, that's what I like about a lot of the X-Files. And, like, if you're not even into that sort of thing, like, I think that's why you could get into the show where it's kind of like it's just a cop show. They're going around trying to interview people. What was your take on this? So we go to somebody else, get their interview. They're detectives, and sometimes some crazy shit gets thrown in between then and there, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just kind of like freak of the week, and while they were doing just a normal case, some shit came out of nowhere, and they're like, what was that? Oh, it was the Mothman, or what, some weird character, basically.
Yeah, and just because of the interchangeability of this, I got lost for a second. You're talking about the X-Files now, right?
Both, really.
Yeah, because they both fit that.
Yeah, it's the
that
same
mold
thing, because that's
about,
what Dean and what's his brother's
Sam.
name?
Sam,
that's what they do. Like, they go and, like, they're just normal guys. They're not even in the FBI.
No.
But they're like, hey, we know this is going on.
But they play one on TV.
Yeah. But then, they go around and they're like, something, this is coming up, or we're looking for that, and they go, they hunt. They're hunters. That's what they call themselves, right?
Yeah,
they hunt it down,
themselves.
literally. So,
but yeah, they Supernatural, I think, took a lot of the staples like you were talking about from the X-Files, and they used it in formulating their shows diagram, I guess.
I never really thought about how they were related until I brought that one episode up a couple podcasts ago, and it was like
Bugs.
Yeah, the Bugs, and they're in Oklahoma. But I'm like,
and you thought it was an X-Files episode,
it was an X-Files,
but it's actually
it's actually supernatural.
Okay.
Yes,
That's actually, I think that is I'm pretty sure that's a Kim Manners episode too.
okay, yeah.
Which
now,
is funny.
Kim Manners. I'm not familiar with who this. I've seen the name on the X-Files. Is this he or she? He was what, a producer or
He's producer and director, I think.
Okay.
He was a director at least for the X-Files, producer and director for Supernatural.
and he passed away, I guess, during Supernatural's run at some point.
Yeah, like maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
4 or 5 years ago, something like that.
Okay. And
No wonder.
And I'm sure, in time you'll look back at Supernatural, but I've always kind of, and maybe see the same thing, but I've always kind of noticed it's funny to look back at watching the X-Files again and seeing, like, all these people that are famous now, like, who you were like, oh, man, they were in an X-Files episode back in the early 90s. Like, Ryan Reynolds, Jack Black, Giovanni Ribisi, in the same episode, no less. All kinds of other people, too, or people that, like Vince Gilligan. Vince Gilligan...
He wrote quite a few episodes.
Yeah, he wrote quite a few. Breaking Bad's his big thing, and other stuff now. I mean, I don't know if that's where he got his start, but I mean, you could certainly, I think, say that he cut his teeth on the X-Files. And, I just think it's interesting to look back and see some of the people that have... what's her... I can't remember the actress's name. Andrea from Walking Dead. Was it Renee Cavarubias on
I don't know. I can't remember
X-Files, the senator's aide or whatever?
Yeah. Who had that weird connection with Krychek or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I don't think that's where she got her start, but, it was before everybody knew her as Andrea from The Walking Dead. She was on maybe a season or so of the X-Files as a fairly major character.
Well, you get a lot of that good actor overlap from anybody that's shooting up in Canada.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's something I was going to bring up. Like
that,
they kind of took off from there. Like that, whatever is it as one studio, but like there was a lot of shows that were based out of there.
Yeah.
And a lot of shows that I got into,
or whatever,
Stargate SG-1, I think, was the same thing. I ended up getting to Smallville.
You can always track down the shows that do shoot in Vancouver just by the extras they'll use. Like, oh, I remember that guy from Psych. Yeah, whatever. I mean, that's
but
easy way
they
to
made some
track
great
those
stuff.
shows.
X-Files being one of them, and a lot of long. Well, I mean, look at like X-Files and Stargate. Those are the two longest running sci-fi.
Well, hell, you gotta say
shows of all
Supernatural.
Supernatural,
It's run longer than the X-Files did.
And I'm not 100% sure of this. I'm really talking out of my ass now, but I would guess
that's what we do here, man.
Perfect. Let's say made it to the right place. I would guess that the fact that it's probably a lot cheaper for them to shoot up in Vancouver.
I think it's taxes.
Versus shooting in the U.S. probably helps extend their runs of the series up there because they're able to save money in some area or whatever.
Sure. I think Vancouver, they've made it a point to make it a very hospitable place to come film. I think they've kind of realized that, man, we've got a piece of the market here. Let's hold on to it. So...
well, plus it's Canada. Everybody's nice up there anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's like
that. Talking about these different shows that may have some sort of influence or the X-Files had an influence on. I'm curious to hear, what do you think about how much, if any, do you think Twin Peaks influenced X-Files? Because it was kind of Twin Peaks was like, what, 91 to 92, I think?
Yeah, I think
or 90 to 92.
Something like that.
And the X-Files was right after that.
93.
And you have not necessarily... You have some similarities. You have FBI agent as a central character. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of weird paranormal shit going on.
And David Duchovny's in both series.
He's in Dragon 1, but and David Duchovny's in it.
Yeah.
You kind of have this sort of... Because I think the X-Files you could say that there are some... He never did. Man, it would have been cool if David Lynch would have ever directed an X-Files episode.
That thing would have gone off the rails so fast.
But that's what I like about David Lynch, though, is that it's gonna go off the rails. It's gonna be fucking weird. You're gonna be sitting there going like, what the hell did I just watch? Yeah. Which, I mean, when you talk about Twin Peaks, that's kind of... Who's the guy? Was it Frost? The other guy that was working with him.
Mark Frost.
Mark Frost. He kind of... Almost like he reined in, David Lynch enough to put him on network TV. Because if you would have told me back then, like, after watching stuff like Eraserhead and Blue Velvet, like, hey, that guy who did all that, he's going to make a TV show for network TV. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. There's no way. But a guy like, Mark Frost, I think, might have been able to... rein him in, and even still, it's weird as fuck, dude. Watching,
and they're kind of doing the same thing. Like they're making
they're supposedly coming back in 2000. Now I heard David Lynch has gone away from the project, but I watched a video where a whole bunch of the people involved in it, Kyle MacLachlan, Cheryl Lee, and all these other people, like made a video trying to get him to like come back to work on the show.
How is Cheryl Lee going to even be involved? I mean, every single character that she has played in any of those has been killed off. She played Laura Palmer.
Ryder
dead.
She
played her cousin. Dead.
But hey, all I gotta say is, man, don't forget the Shadow Lodge, baby. Don't forget the Shadow Lodge.
That's true.
Laura Palmer's still there, man. So
that's true.
That's where you can go with it. But yeah, so I think, so do you think it had much influence, or
it just happened to be similar and at the same time?
Have you watched the Twin Peaks?
Yes,
okay.
I have.
I don't think that it had any influence that would be measurable on the X-Files. I think that the timing of it is such that...
Do you think it had anything to do with it getting approved? Like
the culture itself?
Well, that Twin Peaks worked. And maybe this X-Files idea... I don't know how long the X-Files idea had been floating around. Like, how long was Chris Carter trying to sell it before it got bought? And maybe on the back of the success of Twin Peaks, maybe
because you got to think
somebody
Fox
said,
was kind of a new
network,
new thing around then.
Yeah,
and it kind of took off with it.
I mean, if I'm just
guessing,
if I'm looking into my crystal ball, I don't think that it would have had anything to do with it measurably. I think Chris Carter had probably been developing the X-Files idea for at least a couple of years. I think that Twin Peaks kind of stands on its own because David Lynch is, David Lynch, and he had his own sphere of influence and kind of following at that point. He was already an established entity to a certain extent.
Sure, no, he was. He definitely was.
Because he you got to think he had done Dune, Blue Velvet,
Eraserhead. I
don't know that Eraserhead really got him.
Eraserhead was Eraserhead was kind of like one of the. It was an indie hit. Eraserhead was one of those. Eraserhead from, and I watched some stuff with David Lynch talking about. On the back of Eraserhead and Dune is what got him offered. He was off, like George Lucas brought him in to direct possibly Return of the Jedi. Did you know that?
No, I had no idea about that. That would have been awesome to see a David Lynch version.
Yes, I would have been like, "What the fuck is happening?" But I think it could have been great. But
I liked Dune. I have some problems with it.
I've never been able to finish Dune. I always fall asleep.
Wow.
I don't know what it is about that movie.
It was kind of one of those like '80s movies that I didn't watch for the longest time, and I went back, and for some reason I love it.
I think the biggest problem with Dune...
I need to try and watch it again.
Yeah, the biggest problem with Dune... And we're getting way off the rails of what you're...
That's all right. That's
fine. The biggest problem with Dune was that stupid, like, those body shields that they did. They looked horrible.
Yeah.
They should have come
was
up
it an effect or something?
Yeah, an effect that they used like, for their little... energy
steel suit or whatever.
Not the steel suit.
It's like Tron type of.
It looked
bullshit.
exactly like Tron, and it looked horrible. And that's what doesn't hold up at all. Because
luckily, it's not in the movie too much, but it's like.
And hey, at least David Lynch doesn't go back and do like a special edition where he adds Jabba the Hutt in some big scene. At least he just says fuck it and leaves it how it is. I mean, it's kind of one of those. It's like warts and all. Are you gonna love it? And I need to try and watch it again. But
I mean, they remade it with a miniseries, but
I actually heard that was pretty good. I don't know much. It was like Children of Dune. Is that what it was called?
Well, no,
that's something else.
They did Dune and they did Children of Dune.
Yeah, they did both.
Oh, okay.
They actually because
that was on Sci-Fi,
the movie
right?
changes the actual book quite a bit.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Did the series follow the book more closely?
Follow the book real closely.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was.
Some people might say too much, but it was. It was entertaining.
My biggest gripe with it was the guy that played Paul. I thought he was
the main character.
Played it a little whiny.
Yeah.
That was my biggest gripe.
Yeah.
But you like Kyle MacLachlan as Paul.
I liked Kyle MacLachlan's Paul better. Yeah.
Now, who wrote that? That wasn't Heinlein.
Herbert.
Okay,
Herbert.
Heinlein's Starship Troopers, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Which I wish they would remake that movie and hem close to the book because I'm not a big fan of the movie Starship Troopers. It's not the book at all.
It kind of has to be a short if they're going to remake it. The book's like what, 70 pages?
Yeah. No, it's longer than that. It's longer than 70 pages. That's like a 200-page book.
What, Starship Troopers?
It's like tiny.
It's a little bigger, but there's not much to it. Like, even just
the main character
is bigger. The story, like
the main character in the book is the suit. Really.
Yeah, I mean that's
really
cool.
Like, there's not much.
That's really cool. I mean, it's about a kind of a sort of a brief kind of snapshot of this war between mankind and these aliens, and the main sort of vehicle that mankind uses to like stay relevant in this war is this suit.
Like you said, brief
and John,
snapshot.
That's what I'm saying. I think I think it would be. That's the movie I'd want to see. But hey, that's just
weird.
me.
I like the Starship Troopers.
I don't think you're weird. I think
bug's a dead bug.
I think most people do enjoy the movie. It's a piece of satire. They took the movie and made it satire. And from what I understand, I think it was Paul Verhoeven who directed it. When he went to the studio basically told him, "You have this much money," and he said, "Okay, this is enough money to do the suit or do the bugs." And they were like, "Do the bugs," and he was like, "Cool." And so based on that is how he decided to shoot the movie the way that he did, because they weren't because the suit's not even in the movie.
And he probably spent like $50,000 on Casper Van Dien or whatever.
I mean, he got him at a discount back then. I'm sure he's still at a discount. So
he's in the third movie. If everybody watched that,
I would say they made sequels, but whatever.
He probably paid a premium on Denise Richards. Oof, worst idea ever.
I don't know. She wasn't very famous at the time. I don't think that was like her first big movie.
Was it?
Yeah. I think the most famous person in that movie was Michael Ironside.
That was around Wild Things.
I was going to say that was around Wild Things.
I think it was before Wild Things. Exactly. That's what I mean. She was in that Bond movie. She was Christmas.
She wasn't in an X-Files show.
She was. Who was she on James Bond? She was Christmas. What did we say? Christmas. Who gives a fuck? That's who she was. So I mean, nothing against her, but. Like what? Look at find out whenever that movie was. I'm pretty sure Starship Troopers was before.
Starship Troopers 97, Wild Things was 98, and The World's Not Enough is 99.
There you go. She had a good 3-year run.
Yeah.
And what's she been in since? All right, so moving on. Okay, so we've talked about all that stuff. Now let's kind of get into the X-Files itself. Like, you start out, man. Why are you such a big fan of the X-Files? That's a terrible answer.
I don't know. No. The thing about the X-Files that I think I like from a perspective of just enjoying watching it or whatnot is that I'm going to try and the problem I'm going to have here is not stepping on my opinion as to how I think the new one's going to do, because I think this is the juxtaposition we're going to run into. But I like. Basically, Mulder. I mean, at the end of the day, Mulder makes it...
He's a great character.
He makes it an enjoyable series because nobody believes anything coming out of his mouth. Yeah. He's just this... that lines up with Kolchak, Yeah. He's just this kook that is sitting in the basement doing weird shit. And everybody thinks he's a weirdo, but he's getting good results. So, we're not going to mess with him too much.
Do you relate with him, or is it just like it's entertaining?
No, it's entertaining.
Okay,
it's entertaining.
I kind of relate with Mulder because we did a podcast where we talked about UFO sightings in Oklahoma here. And I'm the type of guy who is like, well, actually, most UFO sightings, don't actually involve little green men. It's usually humanoids, or most UFO sightings are around. That's Mulder. Yeah. They bring up some weird stuff, and he's like, well, actually,
reticulans are gray.
yeah. He would know that. And he starts explaining that type of stuff, and everybody in the room just kind of looks like
what is
what? Yeah. Okay. We don't even believe it in the first place, but he knows the inner culture of what's actually going on with this weird stuff.
Yeah,
Mulder is like a charismatic underdog.
Absolutely,
and that's what I think one of the big things that sells the series. And I think Scully. This is me personally. I always thought Scully was a good
counterweight.
Yeah, a good counterweight for him. She's the skeptic, but she's not a shithead about it.
No,
you can actually tell she's
using the scientific method.
Exactly, she's a scientist first, and then over time, as she starts to experience more and more things that she has trouble explaining. I mean, you got to think, though, even still, it goes pretty late where she's kind of like, okay, Mulder, but you could easily explain this way, or it could be from this or that.
I think they were kind of hoisted by their own petard there, and that they were using her as a platform to overcome the skepticism. She was a gentle skeptic so that he could then come up with ways to overcome that skepticism and prove that, there is all this crazy shit going on. But then they kind of got locked into using her that way, as the series went on instead of transitioning her early. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And they have really good chemistry together too anyway. Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny. It's really good chemistry. I think it has a lot of good like secondary characters, like Skinner. Always loved Skinner.
Yeah, Skinner's awesome.
I
didn't think so. Like the first, like just when it was on and watching the show, just like as it was airing.
Yeah.
But rewatching it, I'm like,
yeah, A.D. Skinner. A.D. Skinner, man, dude, he's a bad
he's
motherfucker.
Kind of a badass too. But
yeah,
he's not in the show a lot, so I'm like, it's kind of nice.
His role increases as it goes on.
Yeah.
And I think obviously you have like Deep Throat was really good. He's a season 1 character.
Lone Gunman.
The Lone Gunman. X. I'm a huge fan of X.
Yeah, X was great.
Who was kind of like a Deep Throat character, but he was sort of, which I'll get into in one of the like when we do our top 5s. I got some stuff to say about X.
Well, and as far as villains that are, I mean,
great
cigarette
villains.
smoking man.
Yep.
Oh my god,
Krychek was a good villain, I thought, and I thought even though like
not my favorite, but
I always liked Krychek because Krychek was always like the ultimate. Krychek was the ultimate survivor.
Yeah, he was.
And that's why I liked him, is that Krychek wasn't necessarily evil, and neither was the cigarette-smoking man. He wasn't necessarily evil. Like, just totally like...
evil.
He could do some shit where you're like, man, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
But, if you sat him down, he would have... This is why. This is my method. And it's all that one... There's an episode, Musings of a Cigarette-Smoking Man, where he kind of explains why he does the things that he does. And the world is very black and white to him. It's very, these things must happen for these things to continue. And if nobody's willing to do it, I'm the guy that'll do it. I'm willing to put my chips on the table and say, I'll do it. To quote another, I'll do it. What was that? The chicken farm episode or whatever, the chicken, was it Chaco's chicken or Chaco's chicken? What was that? I can't remember that. That was a great episode.
Yeah.
Was it with the...
I'll think of it here in a second.
Yeah, but anyway, so... Yeah, so just... Those characters, having all those secondary characters, and I mean, there's even more that, I'm forgetting here.
the
Mulder's dad was his mother,
but
Scully's sister.
There's kind of like a rich guy who's in that secret society.
Yeah, the
senator.
He's cool.
Well, no, there's what was he? The British guy.
He was Baron Munchausen.
Yeah, he was not the well articulated man. It's like the well manicured man.
Well dressed man.
No, I think it's well manicured.
Is it?
I think it's well manicured man.
Could be right. I also like the. What was it?
Okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, but no, I mean, there's so many good characters in that show. I thought the writing was overall, it was consistently good. Don't get me wrong, there's bad episodes of every series that you watch.
Sure.
And I think the X-Files is no different. There's some episodes that I'm just like, oh my god, these are just terrible. They're a struggle to get through. But I think consistently though, the X-Files consistency was strong.
And I don't know if you know Steve, but like, was there a show before X-Files where it's like, we do a Monster of the Week type of thing, like where like that there's that formula where they've got the myth, they've got the plot and the storyline, and you got filler episodes, but like they had.
Okay, Kolchak definitely did. I mean, that is what Kolchak was, and I think it was only a season.
It's nothing but like Monsters of the Week.
It's just Monsters of the Week. That's it. And I think that's something that carried over from like the Twilight Zone. Probably, I mean, that's really what the Twilight Zone was.
Yeah, Twilight Zone and Outer Limits. You'd have Monster of the Week.
I think it was the first.
Like, it ties it all together.
Yeah, it was the first series to kind of interweave them that I'm aware of that did really well.
Because nowadays, like, you watch like a superhero show that's somewhere on like the CW, and that's the plot line. Well, like they have the mythos of the superhero, and then they also have like where there's that kind of freak or villain of the week type of thing, and they do the same thing. They interweave it, and that's like your kind of filler episodes. Maybe there's a little plot mixed in there.
I say that, but then it makes me go back and think about things like original Star Trek. I mean, I don't know how. I was never a big fan of it, so I didn't watch it very much. But
you know what, Star Trek, and we're going to do a Star Trek episode someday. In my opinion, you never see. Here's the thing: where the X-Files separated itself from a lot of these shows, it had like you're saying, a storyline, a main themed storyline that ran from the first episode all the way to the last episode. And in between, you had different jaunts on that road that were Freak of the Week episodes. But you had a concurrent, long-spanning main storyline. The original Star Trek didn't have that. Star Trek The Next Generation didn't really have that. You could say the Borg storyline, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. But the one that really did it first was Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine, from the first episode all the way to the last episode, had a main storyline, and then in between those main storyline, signposts were a random Star Trek episode of the week.
Didn't Deep Space Nine come out after X-Files started?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Deep Space Nine, I think, was like,
it's around the same time.
Yeah, it's around the same time.
93.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly close. And
so maybe neither of them have that claim to fame.
Let's see, Deep Space Nine.
It just wasn't around a lot before.
No,
that.
it was the format was fairly unique. It was not
93 to 99.
Especially when some of these you're trying to fill a season of 22 to 24 episodes. You gotta have something else.
Yeah, you gotta think they're both 1993. They both came out in 1993, so that's something that they have in common there. And now, granted, there's there are different types of main storylines, but but anyway, so as far as I know, for me, the X-Files is near and dear. I mean,
that's who I was thinking of. Another one of the kind of side characters I liked. I can't remember his name, but he was the kind of the leader guy of the Men in Black, but he played a kind of a funny character. He was in Dreamland, whatever, where he ended up switching bodies with Mulder.
But he wasn't in much of this series other than that, was he? I don't think he was.
Was that all he was in?
Yeah, you're talking about what's his face?
Yeah, from Saturday Night Live or whatever.
Well, from This Is Spinal Tap and Christopher Guest, I think is his name.
No, that's not Christopher Guest.
Or he's part of that troupe.
He's part of that troupe, but that's not Christopher Guest.
What's his name? That's going to bother me.
Wasn't he in Coneheads?
I'm sure he probably was. Which, by the way, John Neville...
Was he the main lead singer in Spinal Tap?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know. I don't... Yeah, he was in Coneheads. He was the immigration...
Yeah. David Spade's boss.
Yeah. he's actually in
Michael something. His name's Michael something.
I can't remember his name. He's in Clue, if you're ever
Michael McKean. Michael McKean.
Okay.
Yeah, Morris Fletcher was his character.
Better Call Saul. He's
Was he just in chapter or episode season 6 and 7?
I mean, I can look, but
I could have sworn I thought he was in some earlier episodes, but it's been a while since I've watched. So,
but John Neville was the well-manicured man, Baron Munchausen.
Okay.
I'll look that up. I'll look really quick on this guy, but I think he was only in that two-parter, that Dreamland.
Really?
I think, but I could be wrong here.
Wasn't he also in the one where Scully went to that?
No, you're right. Okay, he was in 4 episodes. He was in Dreamland Part 1 and 2. He was in 3 of a Kind, which is, we'll get to that one because I know that's and then Jump the Shark, season 9.
Yeah,
episode 15, which I don't think I've seen. I haven't seen much of season 9. I could not.
It wasn't as good.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, okay, so the X-Files did not, in my opinion, did not end well.
No,
I actually don't know because it's the same way. I've watched a lot of it, and I get to right when Mulder leaves the show, basically.
Yeah, basically season 8, Mulder.
My attention
for almost all of season 8 and all of season 9, Mulder's not there.
I'd like to watch it.
Yeah.
So David Duchovny, the biggest part of the show, in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong; it would suck if Scully would have left, but I think it's harder to replace Mulder because Mulder was the main engine.
Yeah,
and
he was the X-Files.
Yeah, and
Scully got attached to him.
Yeah, and Scully's a great character. I think she helps the show big time. But if you had to tell me we have to get rid of one of them, I'd be like, well, I hate to see her go, but get rid of Scully then. So
you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Exactly, and I think, and that's just how the show's written. That's nothing on Gillian Anderson. It's just the show was created
put on his shoulders.
Yeah. It's everything is kind of tied to him. But anyway, he's not there for much of season 8 and much of season 9. He's not even on the show. They brought in the T-1000
did one episode in each
That's
season.
What I was telling you on the way.
He's at the very ends of them, I think.
Yeah.
And they brought in the
T-1000.
They bring in Robert Patrick. He's Agent Doggett. He's got Agent Reyes with him.
I can't remember her.
I can't remember the actress's name. And it's just tonally, it's just totally different. It's not.
it's not the same. And there's some episodes that I like. There's an episode, I don't know if it's season 8 or 9, where Doggett just wakes up in Mexico,
which is arguably one of the best episodes in those runs. I think.
I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah,
but it's not. It doesn't feel like an X-Files episode. It just feels like a one-off action kind of show.
Yeah.
Like he's
just
been
any show.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this. And Agent Doggett was a totally different character than Mulder. Agent Doggett's like just a badass. Mulder was never a badass.
Yeah, he's like
Mulder's just very smart.
Yeah, Doggett was like Skinner's little brother or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think the character was like former special forces. Like he took the military path into the FBI, whereas Mulder took the academic path into the FBI. And so they're just totally different kind of characters.
Oh man, I'm all of a sudden remembering now that he had this weird relationship with Baldwin.
Who did?
Doggett?
Yeah. What's his face? Baldwin. Jane from Firefly.
Oh, Adam?
Adam Baldwin. Wasn't Adam Baldwin in the X-Files later on?
I didn't know that.
He was like his contact.
I didn't know that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think so. I better check that out for him.
Who cares?
I'm getting like shows fucking mixed up or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that he was his contact there, and Adam Baldwin did some stuff in the X-Files. So that was also another good side character.
Yeah.
So what would you say your favorite 5 episodes are?
Mine?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I'm going to go down a list, which I have one right here in front of me.
Do it.
Okay, so I'm going to say, and I'm going to do a little cheating here, but I don't care. It's our podcast. I'm going to put it number 5, and I'll explain why. I mean, I think it's a good episode anyway, but I think for me, it's a really important episode, and that's Darkness Falls. And the reason I put it at number 5, I put it so high, is because when I went back and tried to watch The X-Files, I don't know about you guys, but season 1 drags. It starts off pretty strong, and then it just drags. And Darkness Falls is towards the end of season 1, and in my opinion, that's where like the show for me jumps back into high gear, where I'm like, okay, I'm not saying they lost their way in season 1. It's just there's a lot of just really
they're just doing what they do.
There's just a lot of dry episodes in season 1
like,
for me.
We've got this monster. We look it up.
They're getting their
shit out. That's it.
Yeah. They're still finding their legs, and I think Darkness Falls is where they really find it. And I just think it's a great episode anyway. So that's Adam Baldwin. He was Noel Rohrer.
Yeah, 5 episodes.
5 episodes. Well, there you go. So anyway, Darkness Falls, number 5 for me. It's a great episode. You got, they're up in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. There's a missing, group of loggers. You've got this bioterrorist kind of, put into the mix there. And there's this whole, when the sun goes down, the bugs come out. And I don't want to ruin any of these episodes for anybody who hasn't watched them yet. I just thought it was a really cool episode. Granted, I understand why people may not like it, but like I said, I think
why do you think it's cool? Because I was talking about
because
it's just kind of a monster.
Well, but it's like a survive the night sort of thing. I think that was kind of a cool dynamic. There's like this, we've got to survive the night, and
there's a little bit of like kind of this impending doom of keeping that generator running.
Exactly, yeah.
I get that.
And there's a lot of character conflict between Mulder and Scully, the logger, the bioterrorist. They have them all there, or the sheriff.
They did a good job of mounting tension in that episode.
Yeah, and they're at each other's throats because the sheriff hates this logger guy. The sheriff hates the bioterrorist guy. The bioterrorist hates the sheriff and the loggers because they're cutting down all these trees, and he has a bit of a point because maybe they cut down some trees that they shouldn't have cut down because there's some weird shit that was laying dormant in them. And here you have this whole, and again, it may be a freak of the week thing or monster of the week, but that's most of the X-Files
freak
episodes.
Of the week one, it's kind of one that's like, some shit's actually happening. It's not like, I don't know, we didn't actually find any evidence of the, or it slithered away and it was never actually seen. No, we've
there's like a whole government response, to that whole thing at towards the end or at the end of it. But so anyway, my number 5 is Darkness Falls. For me, it's where the X-Files really, like you said, that's where it finds its legs for good. And again, there's some good episodes before it. For me in particular, every time I think of the X-Files, I'm always thinking of that episode for some reason. I don't know what it is. I just really like it. Anyway, so that's number 5 for me. Number 4, this is a 2-parter mythology, and that's Nisei and 731. It's the one where it starts out where Mulder has like bought that alien autopsy tape, and he's like watching it, and then he goes to like look. He finds out like where it was filmed, or who sent it, like from some place in Pennsylvania, and he goes out there and like it kind of kicks off this whole international sort of incident because you have this Japanese guy with diplomatic clearance.
Who beats up Mulder?
Beats up Mulder. The lone gunmen are in it. You have a lot of like kind of play between like what's hoax, what's a red herring, what's not. And then as you transition from Nisei into 731, the second part of it, you have like that NSA assassin that's like after basically trying to stop Mulder. You have that train with the bomb, and there may be another autopsy going on. X is up in it.
Skinner has his first fist fight.
Yep, Skinner's in the mix. And also at the same time you have Scully tracking the implant. That's where she starts to learn more about the implant she has, and I think that stuff's interesting. And then X is a big part of that too. X is kind of like the I gotta fix everything kind of guy at that point. And that's another thing I want to talk about, why I like X so much. I like Deep Throat a lot, but here's why I liked X better. X was like the reluctant Deep Throat. Deep Throat wanted to help Mulder. X is only helping Mulder because of Deep Throat. Because he was like, I got the impression he was like Deep Throat's protege. And he's kind of like, because he always basically gives Mulder shit when he's having to help him. He's just like, I won't do this for you again or something. He's like, you're putting me in a bad position here. He's not like the same sort of gentle sort of, like Deep Throat was very, almost fatherly to him in a kind of a way.
On a side note, one of my favorite side characters on Supernatural was actually played X on X-Files, Rufus.
Okay, yeah, I kind of remember him. I didn't think about
really.
Yeah.
Who's the actor? We should I'd give that guy some.
Yeah,
he's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome in X-Files. Just the looks he gives.
I'm gonna find because I want to because I like that actor.
Oh, he has some of the best delivery and lines to go with it, obviously, in the Supernatural. But he's one of my favorite side characters.
So yeah, and like I said, I just love him as X, dude. X was such a great character in my opinion.
And these are inside people that are like,
yeah, and it's sort of
the lowdown from the government, and
that's what I'm saying. You never know.
And Mulder goes around and like,
and he's kind of part of the whole like Mulder's trying to figure out what exactly is bullshit.
What's the truth?
Stephen Williams.
Okay.
That's who plays X. And I always loved X. Any episode with X, I'm probably gonna like just because I like X so much. Okay, so that's number 4. I kind of cheat a little bit with a 2-parter. Nisei 731. Number 3, Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. Love that episode.
That is a pretty good one.
And that's Peter Boyle. Played Raymond's dad on Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
Passed away not too many years ago. Mm-hmm. Believe he won an Emmy for that X-Files episode. Pretty sure he did.
Yeah,
I think he did.
It's just a really good episode.
He plays a psychic who is essentially helping Mulder and Scully track down a serial killer.
He sees people's death.
Yeah,
I think
he can see how people are going to die, and even after the fact, he can kind of glean clues from a crime scene. So. Really, and it's a funny episode. It's poignant and lighthearted all at the same time. It's kind of sad.
It kind of gets Scully on board there a little bit.
Yes, he really makes Scully question a lot of things.
Holy shit!
Well, the interesting tidbit is it's the first episode that introduces the idea that Scully's immortal.
Yes. Because whenever she asks,
that was an idea.
Because he tells Mulder, because he's like, Mulder, how's Mulder gonna die? It's like something to do with like autoerotic asphyxiation. Yeah. And then Scully, I don't think wants to know, or she does actually. She's like, at first she doesn't want to know, and then later in the episode,
it's like, okay,
she's like, tell me, and he's like, funny thing, you don't.
Yeah, you're not.
And
die.
she's like, what? And then they never really explain it, but. There are episodes later where you kind of get
it's the guy Titus or Tithonus?
Yeah,
maybe.
Tithonus.
Or whatever it is, where the guy that takes people's pictures.
Yeah.
And whoever's picture he takes, I can't remember the exact part of this, but whoever's picture he takes he like takes their spirit or something like that, keeping him alive or something like that, and she ends up taking his picture or something like that.
Yeah,
I think I don't remember the exact thing, but whatever it was, it has something to do with some camera, and it keeps her alive forever now. So now she's not going to die.
yeah, something. Yeah,
I would have figured it was something like, when she got abducted. That
no, it had to do with a supernatural camera.
yeah, and you're right. And I that's a couple of seasons later, I think, or maybe I think it's called Tithonus or Tithonus or something like that is the name of the episode. Because I was talking about that with somebody I work with. They were watching the X-Files, and we talked about that, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly.
And the guy that plays it seems like he was a pretty famous dude, I think. I'll have to look that up.
But Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, man, there's some, what is it, Yappy, is it Yappy, I think, is the guy's name that's on the TV? He's like the television, and they bring him in, he's like the psychic that they bring in, but he's just this totally goofball character. Really funny. And like I said, it's
the amazing
Yappy. Yeah. And it's just a funny episode, but like I said, it's also really poignant and sad, and it's just a great episode, man.
All around.
I just really, really like that episode. So that's my number 3 is Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. Number 2 is going to be another 2-parter. I'm going to cheat again. Don't care. Unusual Suspects and 3 of a Kind. This is the origins of the Lone Gunman, starting with Unusual Suspects, and then I think it's a season later they pick up with, because the Unusual Suspects starts with they're all at like an FCC conference or something. Or like a tech conference, and one of the Lone Gunman buyers is there as like he works for the FCC, and Frohickey and Langley are there selling their electronics products or whatever.
Yeah, selling their cable descramblers.
Yeah, their cable descramblers. Yeah,
descramblers.
Yeah, and they basically through this lady Suzanne Medeski fall into this government plot to like test some substance out on the public in Baltimore. Mulder is tracking her, so that's how Mulder meets the Lone Gunman.
Yeah, because she's wanted by the FBI.
Yeah, she's wanted by the FBI because she's been accused of killing her research team at some facility like White Sands in New Mexico or something, and she's trying to find the evidence she needs to expose this whole because she's like an organic chemist or something, and so she's like, I worked on this thing and I found out what they're going to do with it, and so I left, but you can't just quit my job. They basically framed me for murder. They scrubbed my whole team, i.e. they killed them, and they hung those murders on me, and so she's basically desperate for help. The Lone Gunman kind of they all kind of swoon over her and help her out because they're all kind of sort of naive fucking
nerds.
And they help her out, and it's just done really well. And then the kind of cool thing is you have X is in that episode.
Yeah,
he's not until kind of towards the end, but he's the one who turns out he names the Lone Gunman really. Because they asked him about, they're like the whole JFK thing, and he's like,
what about this? What about that?
And he's like, I heard it was a lone gunman. And then he walks off, and I'm like, yeah, that's where the fucking X dubbed them. He wasn't naming them the Lone Gunman, but they took that and took it on as their own, as their name. And then you have 3 of a Kind, which picks up years later. They're at a conference in Las Vegas, and they see Suzanne Medeski, and it kind of kicks off this whole other thing where Mulder's not available. I can't remember what the reason is. So they call Scully. So Scully comes out to Las Vegas and kind of falls in with them. Because I can't remember what the reason was.
They don't call Scully proprietarily. They faked like it was someone else calling her out.
Was that what they did?
I think so.
Okay.
And that's why she's a little mad when she gets out there.
They basically roped Scully in.
Yeah, they spoof it like it was Mulder calling her.
Okay, that could And it's just another great episode. It's like, it's like a 1-2 punch kind of. But the cool thing about 3 of a Kind is it almost plays out like, Ocean's 11 kind of, sort of. They have some, casino caperish kind of stuff going on in that one, which I thought was kind of neat too. And it's the Lone Gunman, man. I mean, it's just, they're great secondary side characters. You have, now this time Scully's, having to deal with them and stuff. And this is really the first time that Scully has spent an extended period of time with the Lone Gunman, and it just makes for good television.
Yeah, plus she gets roofied and gets hit on by Michael McKean or whatever his name is.
Was that in the 3 of it? Oh yeah, I guess yeah.
He lights her cigarette.
Yeah. So yeah, just that's my number 2. That two, the kind of, it's not necessarily a 2-parter, but they're 2 that go together in my opinion. Which
They tie
is
together.
whenever you watch it on, if you watch it on Netflix, they're separated by a season at least. If you watch 3 of a Kind, it starts out showing you Unusual Suspects, what happened in it, like last time on
Previously
X-Files.
on
Yeah.
X-Files, yeah.
So that's and for that, I think that kind of helps validate me putting them together. And so then my number 1 is Jose Chung's From Outer Space. As much as I mean, it's very lighthearted. It's funny. It's
Got some crazy shit in it.
it's got a lot of crazy stuff in it. It's got a unique way that the story's told. The story is told essentially against the backdrop of an author trying to write a book about an X-File. A guy that's totally he's not in the loop with Mulder and Scully. He's a civilian.
Yeah, he just heard about the story and was like,
Exactly, and he's like, and he's like
and
he's like a famous author, and he's like, I'm gonna write that. This is my next story is gonna be a supernatural, or an extraterrestrial story, and it's just about him trying to get information, and it's all the different ways that different people recount the events that as they experience them, and it has some pretty neat cameos. I don't want to ruin them.
line up. The stories don't line up.
Isn't Scully like a fan of his too?
Yeah.
she's like-
that's
Because
right.
when he's
read a
sitting
lot of
there
his
talking
books.
to him, she's like, he mentions some book, and she's like, the greatest thriller ever written, and he's like, he's like, thank you, and and Mulder's really kind of like doesn't want anything to do with them.
He just thinks he's another.
Towards the end, though, Mulder kind of, because he's like, because Mulder's more worried, like, you're gonna make these people a joke.
Yeah.
And so anyway, a really funny episode. It's almost like it shows that the X-Files, I think that was maybe one of the first examples. I don't know if it was the first, but I think it was the best example to show how self-aware the X-Files was. To show that, yeah, we know that, people probably look at some of the plot lines and stuff in this and roll their eyes and laugh like, oh, the tinfoil hat wearing crowd. Well, here's a send-up of... We're basically spoofing ourselves in a lot of ways. And I thought it worked so well. It just worked great.
At the same time, like, maybe some...
Yeah, maybe
action was actually
something.
going
Yeah,
on in that
maybe
episode.
something was happening here. So, I just think it was a great episode. If somebody were to ask me, I'm only going to watch one X-File, which one should it be? I just, watch Jose Chung's From Outer Space. I'm not going to send them to watch a mythology episode because the hell they'll have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, you've got to follow that through.
I'm going to pick a one-off, and it's going to be that. So
That's cool.
that's my top 5. I'll go over them again really quick. Darkness Falls, number 5. Nisei 731, number 4. Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, number 3. Number 2, Unusual Suspects and 3 of a Kind. And numero uno, Jose Chung's From Outer Space.
Nice. Good list.
Yeah.
Best list. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I figure we start with the best and end with the shit, so...
All right.
That'd be
so
mine.
I'm last. Is that what we're saying?
No. Do you want to go? You go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
that's
Steve,
fine.
what is Steve's top 5
What?
X-Files?
I didn't really order these.
Well,
I can tell
I
you.
don't do it. I just kind of do top episodes.
Yeah,
Because sometimes...
So, like I said, the
you did,
professionalism is
two-parters.
going to end,
Yeah.
and the sort of just spitballing is going to start. Okay.
I can tell you what my number 1 episode is, and the 4 behind it we'll just do in whatever order.
Okay.
Well, do your 4 behind. Do your 4 behind.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do
Okay,
first. I'll
cool.
do the 4 behind it first.
right.
In no particular order. From season 1, pretty early on, Squeeze. Got
It's a good one.
Mulder, I think it's the second episode.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
it's
second
pretty early.
episode.
Yeah, and they start clicking real quick. I mean, is it the second episode?
It's like second or third. It's really early. Like
Pilot
first 4 or
Deep
5.
It's a third episode, I think.
Yeah, you go ahead and talk about it. I'll find out which one.
Anyway, so you get Mulder and Scully to actually start clicking and be on the same page. Like they start facing these external pressures, and so they start bonding together. Is
that why you like this episode?
Yeah, that's part of the reason I like the episode. It's when the series started firing on all cylinders for me.
Okay.
Now, it had some false starts in there, but that's when it just clicked.
Well, that's why I wonder, because I mean, it's technically a freak of the week.
Yeah.
The guy's like, it's called Squeeze. It's a guy like squeezing under doors and shit.
Yeah. This guy Eugene
the-
Victor Toombs.
Eugene Victor Toombs.
He
he came back for another episode later.
Toombs.
Yeah.
So he eats people's livers, and he hibernates for like 30 years at a go, I think.
Yeah.
And the reason he's able to get away with this is because the people's livers that he eats, he's able to break into wherever they're at and in a way that is impossible for anyone to have broken into. So because he can contort his body in a way that he can squeeze through like the tiniest of openings. And so it was a fun episode, I thought. You had this weirdo eating dead animals off the streets and stuff like that they're chasing down. And
it's a great episode.
Yeah, you got Donald Logan there, always great.
Yep.
From he had a show, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a
TV show from Blade. I mean,
okay.
The guy from Blade that was kind of funny, comic relief dude from Blade. He had his own show. He was in Life.
With Damian Lewis. Yep.
Yeah. Played their
great
replacement.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that was like one of those short-lived shows that you're like, good man,
how's it? Yeah. Of course, American Idol is like on its ending show after freaking 13 years of terrorizing the airwaves. Or whatever.
Yeah, but we only get what was it, two seasons of Life? Yeah, it was a great show, man. It was a great show.
One of the best villains ever in that show.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so the next episode I would say would be Syzygy. With got Ryan Reynolds in that episode. You've got what's her face from that.
What season was that?
Yeah. The chick from that 70s show played Eric's sister until I guess she passed away from drug overdose.
Her right there, Lisa Robin Kelly.
Yeah, Lisa Robin Kelly. Yeah, she passed away now. But the whole premise of that show, which was funny, was it was another. I mean, you're going to be basically looking at Monster of the Week episodes because I'm hugely partial to.
I think the reason I didn't like this one was just because of what it was about. Not that it didn't have great stuff in the actual episode.
Yeah, I didn't care so much about the.
I was like, planets are aligning and they can control people.
Yeah, it was a bullshit premise. What I liked about it was the actual interactions that came out from it. I liked Mulder and Scully just being at each other's throats, just about nonsense the whole time, insulting each other.
It turned a lot of things on its ear.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it was pretty much over, except for Mulder and Scully still being a little pissed at each other at the end.
Yeah, no, I like that episode too. It's a good one.
War of the Coprophages.
That one, man. That one I wanted to be on. I wanted it on my top 5. I wanted it so bad to be there. That's a great episode.
Why? This is another bug one.
Oh right? Man, it's
cockroaches are.
Yeah, we got another good guest star here, Tyler Labine.
Who?
He was in Reaper. He was in hilarious actor. He had a Hulu show not too long ago where he talks to ghosts. Anyway, so you have people thinking that cockroaches are taking over their town, and the whole town is just going nuts. I mean, there's panic everywhere. People are dying from cockroach attacks.
And you're like, how the hell can this happen?
Yeah, and then there's all these different explanations as to what's going on.
Yeah, he was the stoner.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I remember now. He was like in his basement making that like...
Yeah, they were smoking the cow manure.
Yeah. This guy right here. It'll load up for you in a second. That guy. They're like in his basement smoking cow dung or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, so every time Mulder would call with a new thing that was just inexplicable, he'd call Scully, he'd explain it, and she'd say, "Well, Mulder, have you checked whatever? Because sometimes
because she's not there.
No,
he's like calling her. Yeah, he's like always calling her, saying like, "Hey, I got this now." Yeah, and she's like, "Well, but did you look at this?" And he's like, "Oh," and he looks at it like. It keeps getting explained until...
And she goes, "I'm coming up there." He goes, No, it's probably nothing.
Yeah, because she's like at home. Yeah, she's like at home trying to sleep, I think, or
she's
something,
washing
right?
Queequeg.
Oh, yeah, she's washing her dog.
She inherited from Clyde Bruckman.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a nice little tie in there, yeah.
And so, anyway, you get all these different explanations from it being the fumes in the the plant, the fertilizer plant or whatever that are there.
Yeah.
To it being I guess what was her name? Her Dr. Bambi or whatever was saying that
Dr. Bambi Barenbaum.
Yeah, she had a theory for it, and then he went and talked to a Stephen Hawking facsimile, I guess, where his theory was that that Mulder kind of, I think, incorporated into what he was doing. That if there were travelers from another planet, they would probably become in that form of bugs,
Okay.
And he was thinking that there were robots, they were all kinds. I mean, just
something, yeah.
And so it was just a fun little episode. I'm
And
probably not doing it justice. I haven't watched it in a while.
Well, wasn't that another one too, where there was like the whole episode was almost being recounted back, and like whenever Mulder went out there, like he had an impression of how Bambi was, and then when Scully came out and finally met her, like it was different. Like, what episode am I thinking of? That's
so.
like
I think
that?
you're confusing it with another one. I'm not sure.
Okay. That's fair enough then. All right. So anyway, I agree. That's a great episode.
Yeah,
I love that episode.
And then Jose Chung, it's on my list also. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely on my list. Any episode with Jesse the Body Ventura. Anytime he's in something,
and he's good in
it.
Get my attention. He's in it very shortly, but he's good.
He's got like a couple lines.
Yeah, he plays a man in black.
Yeah, but it works.
And it works great. That's like I said. Yeah. If I had to recommend one episode to somebody who's never watched it, I'd be like, pick Jose Chunks from Outer Space.
I'll spend all those years playing Dungeons and Dragons and not learn a little something about courage.
Yeah, one of the best fucking lines in the whole series.
You're like, okay, buddy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and like his reaction, his reaction to it, where he's just kind of like, okay, and like
And my top episode would have to be Bad Blood.
See, when we were talking about this, you almost like faked me out because I knew you loved Bad Blood.
Yeah, it's
and you kind of thought you were like, yeah, that'd be in my top
Which one's
5.
that?
So Bad Blood, I think, it's in season 5.
Yeah, I think it's season 5.
It's where Mulder and Scully go out to investigate vampires, and it starts off at a weird spot where in the middle of it, Mulder stakes this kid, Ham Porter from Sandlot.
Yeah, the catcher from the Sandlot.
Chubby
right.
Cheeks from Son-in-Law, the Big Green himself. He...
This is the one I'm thinking
where,
of.
like, there's a pizza
this is the one I'm
line
thinking
or
of where they
something?
both have a different...
Yes.
Mulder thinks he's like a Luke Wilson, or Luke Wilson is like kind of a buck-tooth kind of... Like he's just sort of like a...
Scully tells it first.
Yeah, and he's like really dashing
he's
and...
very suave, very handsome, and just very smart.
And he's like a sheriff. He's a sheriff, right?
Yeah, he's a sheriff. Oh yeah, Dana, that's really smart. What you're, she retold it where he was very complimentary of her ideas,
and he was very dashing and kind of like she. And when Mulder tells it, he's sort of like this country bumpkin, like
y'all the government folks.
Yeah, y'all the government folks. Yeah.
And Luke Wilson just nails. So overall, good episode, and Skinner's in it, so that's always a plus too.
Sure,
I'd say that might be my number 1 episode for sure.
Bad Blood, yeah, and again, like I said, I think it starts off great because he's running through the woods, he's chasing that kid, he shoots him, and then he jumps on top of him, he shoots him.
No, he shot him earlier, but not in that part.
Because he finally falls down and right before it comes in, he's like on top of him and he's looking up at him and his little vampire fangs come down and he's like, oh shit! And then it cuts to the X-Files. Like,
yeah, what happened was
does he stake him?
Yeah, he stakes him.
Oh, he stakes him. Okay.
Because the kid had come in, not in that order, but in the retelling it in the actual order.
But the opening of the episode, I mean.
In the opening,
yes.
in the actual event, the way the actual events were playing out, the kid comes over, he's a pizza delivery kid, and he's been acting outside of the scope of what the town of vampires says is acceptable. They drink like cow blood and they go about their business. But this
not
kid,
killing people.
Right, this kid, he wants to, live the vampire ideal, and so they don't even have real fangs. They just drink blood or whatever, and they're, somewhat nocturnal-ish kind of. Anyway, so he drugs people as a pizza delivery kid.
Yeah.
And then he goes and, exsanguinates them. Well, so Mulder's eating this pizza, and he realizes he's getting drugged, and the kid comes in and he throws his seeds around, and he's throwing seeds. Evidently, one of the myths makes vampires sit down and have to count it. So the kid sits there and counts it. And I think Scully shows up whenever the kid is about to bite Mulder and shoots a couple of times. Well, from Scully's perspective, she didn't hit. From Mulder's perspective, he did. The kid runs off. Mulder starts to regain his senses. As he's getting out of the apartment or hotel room, rather, he breaks this chair, grabs a piece of it, and runs off into the woods after the kid.
Yeah.
And then he chases him down. And what you see in the very beginning is him chasing him down, knocking him down, and
staking him.
And
then his little fangs slide down, and he's like, oh, shit. And then it
cuts.
Yeah, okay, all right. So those are your top 5.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I didn't really pick a top 5. I just
like James Bond. Don't pick a top 5.
I actually wasn't even going to make a list, and I started looking at your twos.
And you realized how garbage they were, and you were like, I got to make my own.
Well, like yours, it was Steve's. It was like Freak of the Week kind of.
Love the Monster of the Week format.
And that's what I'm saying. Like I was kind of telling you, it's like sometimes people like, yeah, it's a Freak of the Week one, but it's like this certain one, and there's just something about it, be it the whatever the monster was, or there's something in the episode that just works.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, I picked a lot of mine. Like, I'll just kind of name some of them off.
All right.
A lot of mine are like the mythology episodes. They're the
which that's good. I mean, hey, that's the main thrust of the show.
The first one I put down, I think it's a 2-parter, Ascension and One Breath.
No. Dwayne Barry.
Dwayne Barry. Okay, and that Ascension.
I think maybe I think One Breath is aside from all that. I think.
I don't think so. I seem
that's
to
how
recall
well I did.
One Breath being part. There's a boat involved in it.
Well, that's what Scully. She's like Scully's on the verge
about to
of
die.
Yeah, and it's her sister, but I don't think that has anything to do with.
I think it's tied together to him.
I don't.
Yeah,
I think it's Dwayne Barry, Ascension, and One Breath. I think because they find her.
No, you have Dwayne Barry, Ascension, 3, then One Breath.
Okay, well, 3 is outside. 3 is those little vampires that Mulder runs into in like L.A. and it's filmed in this weird color. It's.
Yeah, I remember.
It's like black and white.
No, it's kind of like reddish, really,
like sepia or whatever.
But but basically that's the one where like Scully gets.
When they find her after the stuff that happened with Dwayne Barry.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess
she's
it's kind of
for an episode or something. I think what's actually going on in real life is Gillian Anderson was pregnant.
Yeah, I think that's exactly
and
what it was.
they kind of tied it into.
So I guess it's really a 3-party. It's Dwayne Barry, Ascension, and then they skip one, and then they have One Breath.
Yes.
So okay, there you go.
And that's actually one of the most popular, like not most popular, but like that's one of the highest viewed starting out as the show. Like
you were talking about this the other day. It had how many views
like
back in
almost 17 million. Like
in the 90s.
Back in the 90s, and that was like if there was a television on at that time when it was airing, 10% of them were watching that episode.
Is this like Nielsen ratings? Is this
something like that? Yeah,
I think is that how that works?
Which is crazy now because you have shows that are like big hit shows nowadays get how many views?
Like The Walking Dead and like whatever popular show.
Game of Thrones maybe.
Yeah, it's like 10, 11, 12. And that's just saying the change of TV.
But here's the problem. The Nielsen ratings, because that's what you're quoting. I'm 99% certain. Nielsen ratings do not take into account anything that's not watched during the prime time. So if someone is going back and watching something on demand or watching it online or something,
but you're gonna think that wasn't available back then,
right?
So that's why
that's a pretty big number. 17 million people watched that episode. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
crazy. Popular. Yeah,
that's to show how popular the X-Files was when it was out.
Like some shows get to stick around just because they've got over 1 million. Viewers in that a week, and that's it.
Well, I remember when we were in high school, man, we would go over to a friend's house Sunday nights, and we would watch the X-Files. I mean, that was the thing we did.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we were talking about Fox being a early, like it was kind of like one of its early hits.
It might have been its first big.
Maybe
hit.
It was. I don't know.
I mean, I know they got
Simpsons.
No, Simpsons. Yeah,
Simpsons. Yeah. But
Simpsons.
It was part of that because I think they came on the same night, right? Sunday nights?
I think so. I think it was Simpsons and then X-Files. Yeah, it was their lead-in.
And that's kind of why I bring some of these episodes up. Like, one, it's really big on... I don't know everything about the episode. It's just big on the mythology and for, like, reasons like that. Like, plus it was, we were talking about this. Billy gets abducted. Or she gets kidnapped.
She gets kidnapped, yeah.
She gets abducted
by Dwayne Barry.
Yeah, she gets abducted by Dwayne Barry, and like I was talking about those like they didn't want to have that in the episode. The censors and just producers and the people from Fox didn't want to have a picture of Scully getting loaded into a truck or a trunk because they were just like, that's just
There might have been something going on at the time too. Maybe that was a little.
I don't know, but it just
art
kind of talks
imitating
about
life
the
too much.
The time, I guess, where it's like nowadays, like that's.
Well, I can kind of see that from the
I can totally see
from the
why.
perspective of you've got an FBI agent and that completely undermines any of her authority, right?
Yeah,
there. She's supposed to be the one doing the chasing, not the one getting chased.
Was Waco going on around that time?
Yeah, I think Waco had already happened.
Yeah, I think Waco was like 92.
Ascension One Breath was what 94.
Yeah,
Waco was 93.
Was it 93? Okay, so 92 or 93. Something
so
like
it
that.
just happened.
So yeah. But yeah, that's a good stretch. I like that. Was I'm Dwayne Barry.
Yeah, and then I've got a Colony Endgame. I think that's another 2-parter.
Yeah, with the alien bounty hunter.
That's what I was. That's
Alien
why I brought
Bounty
up.
Hunter.
Like, that's the first episode.
What's that guy's name?
I don't know, man.
That's a side
look him
character
up.
we didn't even mention earlier.
Bad guy from Cobra.
Yeah.
He's not really in much.
No, he was literally in Cobra, I think, and then X-Files. No, he's in other stuff too.
Brian Thompson.
He's in other stuff too.
But yeah, he's a great recurring character.
He was in the Terminator, Cobra.
He shows up and you're just like, oh shit. Every time you're watching the X-Files, you're like, oh.
I just laugh at this stuff in Cobra. That was such a bad movie.
Yeah.
It had one good thing going for it. It had a 1943 Plymouth Custom in it.
Yeah, that was a badass car.
I'm not 100% on this. Was it also the first episode with like the black oil stuff in people's eyes?
No, I think that was Piper Maru.
And see that's I think that's why I put this down. I had Piper Maru
this
and
is
Apocrypha.
Piper Maru and stuff
that's
is after
another
that.
2-parter.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think, unless it's season 1. I don't think
It's not season 1.
It's like 2 or 3. And
then it would probably be the black oil.
And that's why I named that down. I kind of threw in a random. It's not Freak of the Week, but it is kind of a one-off episode. I put Grotesque down.
One of my least favorite episodes.
Yeah,
the Gargoyles.
Yes, I
hated
can see
that
why.
stupid episode.
I can see why, because I kind of agree. But it's kind of also like that. Was it?
Ziggy, yeah.
It's kind of like that episode where it was like it's got some crazy stuff where.
Because you have Mulder's like mentor. Kurtwood Smith.
Plus, it's like he starts thinking he's a gargoyle or something, or like
he's
turning into a gargoyle or something, and like
he's the one that's been
losing it.
He's been after this guy for a long time.
Yeah,
and he brings Mulder in to help him crack the case. Mm-hmm. And like Mulder and him have been separate for some time, and like Mulder helps him crack the case, and then he starts to go crazy himself. Kurtwood Smith does. Which that 70s show actor.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah. But that's kind of why I brought that episode up, because it's kind of the same thing where I'm like, if you're really thinking about good episodes, like it's not it. But there's cool things in there.
You liked it enough.
Where it's like, okay, that's kind of crazy.
You're allowed to be wrong about at least one.
I guess so. But I brought up a lot of the mythology ones.
But, hell, you talk about it and I start thinking about it. Like, I remember that episode distinctly. So, I mean, I didn't hate that episode. I think
that's kind of why. Like, just like even like that one I didn't like of yours, I still remembered it where it's like...
You get some good backstory.
Like, they're fighting, they're like going after each other, and you're just like, oh my god, it's just completely different.
Sure.
A lot of my episodes, like, I think this is what I liked about the show in general. Overall, it's kind of a downer. Like, it's just like, bummer, man. Like, the government, like, they're running things. And we are all just... whether it's an alien invasion or like that...
The shadow government.
Shadow government, or like that one where that's like 3 of a kind and the lone gunman. What was the original?
Unusual Suspects.
Unusual Suspects. It's like there's some kind of government plot where like they're going to do a bio attack on the populace and nobody knows about it, and like. But I think that's kind of like what makes it good too, where it's like episodes like you named, Drew, where it's really like lighthearted and funny, and or just a completely different perspective from maybe a character that's not even in the show. It's just in that one episode.
Sure.
Or it's a crazy twist. Like, I never thought about that. Or you're just like, when you watch it, it's not even a downer. It's actually kind of funny.
Yeah. And I think the X-Files did that really well. When the X-Files wanted to be funny, in my opinion,
instead of just doing complete filler,
they knocked it out of the park.
Of the week.
Yeah. And
they
I think
really
it just
do
showed
a good job of melding all that together.
Yeah, I thought it was a very versatile show.
Yeah.
So, were there any others that you had, or
that was it? That was it. That's as far as I got, as far as just like listing.
Okay.
Mainly, if you want to like think about my favorite episodes, it's the mythology. I'm like,
you like all okay, you like all the
invasion,
the government conspiracy and all that.
Yeah.
I hear you. Okay, so all that out of the way, then let's at least briefly talk about.
Are we running over time?
I mean, we're
going on.
We're about an hour and 20 minutes almost.
Longest episode
ever. So let's at least briefly then. I think we were going to talk about some other stuff, like maybe some of the spin-offs. The Lone Gunman had a spin-off. Millennium had a spin-off.
Some say, is it worth it?
And I think that I think both of those. I don't think either of us really. I think you liked the Lone Gunman. You thought it was a bit ahead of its time. You thought it was
extremely ahead of its time.
You think it was
the spiritual predecessor to Chuck.
Chuck worked. Yeah. Lone Gunman didn't. I didn't really care for the Lone Gunman. I'm not a huge fan of Chuck either. Millennium.
I haven't watched it. I've been interested and want to.
You should at least give him a shot.
I never even thought of it as a tie-in to any of this, and kind of piques my interest. I'm like,
and there was also like Millennium, and I don't think Millennium. I've never watched it.
Millennium was way darker than the X-Files was.
Yeah,
and I didn't really care for it.
Fringe. I never watched Fringe.
I've watched some Fringe.
Fringe is kind of same kind of vein as that. You can tell it's inspired by the X-Files.
I think Fringe actually borrowed a lot from the X-Files.
It was on Fox, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about those. Let's just talk about. We got 6 new episodes. How excited are you for the X-Files coming back?
Not really.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
I don't think they can catch lightning in the bottle again, and here's why. Because a lot of what made it work for me, like I said earlier, is that it's Mulder kind of against the world. Nobody believes him. Everybody's just kind of sitting there saying, yeah, whatever, you kook, go back to your basement. But Spooky Mulder. But now, all of a sudden, he's being... I mean, I'm basing this a little bit on...
the trailer,
but he's being whisked all over the world in helicopters because Mulder's the one that can save us, and it's just kind of like, well, yeah, you kind of lost that magic for me there.
Fair enough. I'm excited for it.
It's kind of like that magic I'm talking about the show, where it's like, if you're going to sit there and just have six straight episodes and it's nothing but hardcore mythology, you're kind of like, eh.
Yeah, your blend is off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I doubt that's going to happen in just 6 episodes.
But,
you never know.
Obviously, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
I'm not... If I'm predicting, then I don't predict it. But, I mean, hey, I hope it does well. I love the actors. I love the X-Files. So,
And I hope it's...
enough.
Yeah,
for you to watch.
I hope it's a springboard for more than just 6. I hope it's not done at 6.
If they can make it past 6, then yes, I think
I'll be impressed.
Well, not only will I be impressed, but I think that it could turn into something that I would like. I'm predicting.
Fair enough, and I hope it does. I really, because
I've heard it's not so great.
Yeah, I know you've heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just from people that have screened it already. But I mean,
well,
that's critics.
The last movie was horrible.
See, I watched it a couple days ago. I didn't think it was that bad, but I could see why you would think it's horrible.
Nothing good about it for me.
The first movie I love.
If you're like going into a movie like, man, I watched the first movie, and I'm looking for more of that or something. That's not in that newest.
That movie's a Freak of the Week movie, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, at best, and it's just
it's
like a long episode that you're just kind of like, all right.
I didn't even get. I honestly didn't even get the feel that it was an X-File.
It was just kind of like, hey, we're revisiting Mulder and Scully.
I think we should refer to them as one unit. Sculder.
Yeah,
now. That's it.
You just kind of like see them like later on, and you're like, cool. And there they are later on in life. Yeah. Neat.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Dude.
I followed you whenever you told me years ago. You were like, "It's bad, it's bad." I was like, "Okay, I'm not going to watch it then." And I have never watched it.
What kind of piqued my interest is I was looking up some of these episodes for this podcast, and Roger Ebert gave it like a positive rating, like, it's a decent thriller.
Time to run.
Yeah, and I'm like, what the hell?
I mean, this is the guy that said video games could never be art.
But it kind of ties into like what you're talking about. Like, is this going to be a good run? Are you happy like a run of the X-Files is coming back?
I'm thrilled.
Because what he said about this latest movie was like, it works like a classic thriller, like thrillers used to work. And I kind of wonder, I'm like, have we aged out of, like we were talking about?
He brings up a good point in that I do think Chris Carter should be given some credit for being a student of filmography.
Yeah.
In general,
just not even just
X-Files. So he's probably right in a sense that it was a formula that was probably used before, and it might not have been seen as much lately. And Chris Carter, if anybody can bring it to life, it's him. It's just probably a formula that I didn't particularly care for, and I didn't think it fit with the whole tone of the X-Files as it existed before.
It almost seems like, from what I've heard, that they should have done this second movie as the first movie, and then ended things with the second movie having a big mythology.
But I
movie.
mean, I don't think you could have done that.
I'll counter with, I don't think they should have ever done the second movie and
Fair
still
enough.
done the first movie.
Fair enough, because I really like the first movie.
Yeah, because I would agree, because it's kind of like, after watching it, it's, just okay, but like, why bother?
Yeah.
Other than just checking in on those characters, like, hey, here they are.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
That's really about it.
Plus, you had what's his name? Kurzweil? Is that his name? First movie?
Yeah. Martin Landau.
Martin Landau.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, great. Yeah,
straight out of Rounders, man. Still rounding.
It was it was a great movie. It pushed the mythology forward. It didn't answer. It answered a few questions, but left you with a lot more. And it was at the height of the series, and it just kind of kept things going. I thought it was a great movie.
Oh, it was perfect. Yeah, it advanced everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's why I bring up the latest one. Was like, well, this new stuff.
Well,
is it worth checking in on these people anymore?
I say yes.
We're gonna find out.
I say yes because they ended the way that it ended. And again, and I've heard, and this was a strange thing I heard, but I heard that it was like a quick one sentence analysis of the new 6-episode run was X-Files goes Alex Jones, which Alex Jones is the InfoWars guy. Like, if you've ever seen him, he's like the black helicopters and the government's doing. And I was kind of like, well, wait, they're saying that like it's a bad thing. Not that
so I don't know.
Alex Jones is, whatever, your opinion of him, but I mean, the X-Files
I'm gonna watch him.
The X-Files was always like that, though. The X-Files is the ultimate conspiracy show.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, is that a critique, or is it a, what are they, I didn't get what
maybe
they were trying to say there. I don't know, maybe. I guess, know. And we're gonna see.
Or maybe it was just a soundbite.
It could, yeah, exactly, yeah. And I'm excited to see it.
Or maybe a guy who wasn't really into it in the first place. I don't...
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just going to have to watch it and judge it for myself, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm like I said, I keep saying it. I'm excited to see it. The second I heard it was coming back, I got amped up. I'm going to DVR it and try my damnedest not to watch any of it and just binge it. And hopefully
this is something I brought to you where it's like, it's kind of weird where most things that come back for something like that were like, oh, it's only a 6-episode run.
Yeah.
Nowadays, like, they just put all those episodes out on Netflix. Watch them, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, usually...
And sometimes the story and the feel of the show is different just because that format's different. But that's not what's going to happen.
No, I heard that the first 2 episodes are going to be back-to-back in days. So episode 1 is this Sunday, the 24th of January.
It's going to be
Episode 2 is Monday, the 25th.
I'm a binge watcher anyway. If
I
I can't watch at least 4 episodes in a go, don't even bother me.
And that's what I'm saying. Like the story, just how how an episode is cut, can be different because of that.
Yeah.
I wonder if what's that going to be like?
They're going to cater to it a little bit.
I don't know. You know.
Well, I guess we'll kind of revisit this at least. Me and you, Brad, talk about kind of our impressions of it later, and hey, maybe we'll have you back on, Steve, to talk about X-Files or something else entirely.
Some would say a little bit about some things,
Yeah, a couple things maybe.
X-Files?
Yeah, maybe a little bit more than just the X-Files. You may still be useful to us. But no, really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, you're our first guest, man.
Yep, you're our first guest, so you can...
we had to start somewhere. I guess we had to.
Whenever we're big and famous and we forget all about you, you can at least tell people when you write your memoirs, I was the first guest on the Unidentified Flying Podcast.
Back hey, I
set the bar a little high for future guests.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We're probably just going to edit you out anyway.
Smart play.
So, okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up. This has gone on for, we are rapidly approaching an hour and 30 minutes. So,
good time to cut it off.
Yeah, good time to cut it off. So, at UFP on Twitter,
UFP
Podcast at gmail.com. Which it is at UFP on Twitter, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All
right. And unidentified.
I'm going to give you hell the whole
that's
time.
That's fine. You can bust my chops. That's fine. That's and Unidentified Flying Podcast on Facebook.
Yes.
So
okay. And if anyone just wants to search us, like in some kind of podcast app or whatever, that's what you would search.
Unidentified Flying Podcast. Yes. Okay.
That is the name of our show.
So, like I said, it's time for Escape Velocity. So we're getting out of here. So once again, thank you, Steve. You want to say bye to everybody?
No.
Okay. So for the Unidentified Flying Podcast, this has been Drew, and
I'm Brad.
Y'all have a good one.